welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful October the 22nd, 2020. Grande Deportes, bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Wait. I think the Dodgers are about to bring in another relief pitcher. No, the game is over. My bad. I want to extend a thank you to our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, our doctors, our first responders for the marvelous job that they do. They don't have to bring in 7 relief pitchers during an afternoon of work.
Yeah, it's all fair. Atlanta War. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars also all around the world. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic. And he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll have a dumb TV, if that makes sense to you, Big C. Man, I love pausing. It helps me feel good, Big C. And I hope calling this number, the Veterans Crisis Hotline, can make them feel good. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, I know it's not appreciated by a lot of broadcasters, but why is it so important to you, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's appreciated by a lot of Americans and also our military veterans. We lose some 2 dozen a day to suicide. That's just veterans, Charlton, as well as everyday citizens. We also lose a wealth of them also.
Yep.
And this pandemic has not helped out these veterans in any kind of way, Charlton. We're losing too many of them to COVID-19. But this needs to be something that becomes an American institution, giving out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number.
Yep.
It would show that all Americans care, all broadcast companies care about the health and welfare of Americans as well as our veterans, Charlton. This is just a minor thing out of anybody's day to give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number. Because so many of us have family members or know somebody who has family members that have served in the military. And many of these men and women come back, Charlton, with many disabilities.
Yeah.
And many of them we cannot see.
Yeah.
And so to give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, helps save lives. Helps save lives of veterans. It helps save lives of American citizens. It should become an American institution. Just like we have politics, I think our military is a little more important than politics.
Yeah, so do I, but not everybody sees things the same. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get our military veterans some help. A lot of them are even appreciating the flyovers that some broadcasters don't appreciate. Also, I'm very happy to be affiliated with Valley, Homes Weekly TV, On Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the home run king, Barry Bonds. And when you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country to put people back to work, just like McDonald's does. Sports teams doing it, car dealerships doing it. You can do it too. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. And I'm telling you, if you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can definitely get some help. I want to make sure all around the world, you know, sometimes what you say comes true. I used to watch I Dream of Jeannie with Barbie Eaton and the late Larry Hagman. And she would twinkle her nose, and she would say, "What do you want, master?" And he would say, "I want to hear a Big C Sports podcast." and it comes up all over the world. Just download the app, where there's iHeartRadio podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. It's all over the world. So Barbie Eden, she needed that on the I Dream of Jeannie show. Big C, I'm going to ask you something, because I know you always talk about, I know we have politics and sports going on tonight, but you always talk about how everyone wants to give out that Veterans Crisis Hotline, because it really is important to a lot of veterans. But I hear some good old boys that were doing an NFL football game, and you can look at it any way you want to. It was Troy Aikman, who's a Hall of Famer, and also his friend Joe Buck, whose daddy got him into the business. And there was some criticism of these two guys as they were criticizing the flyovers of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Green Bay Packers game. That's our military. They have an agreement with the NFL, and that's a time for everyone to say thank you to the military. So Fox Sports' top NFL broadcasting duo, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, they were caught on a hot mic. For you good old boys down south, that meant they thought the mic was off. And during the flyover, they said, and I'm just going to kind of quote what I heard, Big C. Aikman was saying, that's a lot of jet fuel just to do a flyover, and that's your hard-earned taxpayer money and your taxpayer dollars. And Joe Buck responded sarcastically, that stuff ain't happening with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's ticket. And Aikman added, I'll tell you that's right now, partner. Are they anti-military when they all slam Colin Kaepernick? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I look at the statement, is that they're saying that the taxpayers are stupid for supporting the military flyover.
Yeah.
That's what I heard in the comment, is that that's a lot of wasted jet fuel, and it came out of taxpayers' money. So he's saying that the taxpayers are stupid for supporting military flyovers at football games, and he's saying that these are the same taxpayers that were stupid for saying that Colin Kaepernick were anti-military and anti-police.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these guys got to take a stance on which side of the fence that they're on. This reminds me of Jim Nance.
Yeah.
Saying he was so tired of the crap of players taking a knee, and he wished they would get beyond it because there's no systemic racism in America. So when I look at Buck and Aikman in this scenario, Charlton, I think they're anti-American in their statement as far as what they're making. That makes them anti-military also.
Well, it's interesting to me because we're two black men and they're two white men. And this whole country since 1619 has always made us the enemy. The other, the ominous ones, the ogres, the ones who are, what do they really want? We want liberty and justice for all. It's amazing because I look at it two ways. I would have thought that Troy Aikman, especially growing up in Henrietta, Oklahoma, and then going on to Oklahoma and then out to UCLA, where there's a lot more diversity in LA than there is in Oklahoma, just my opinion. And then Buck, his father's been in the business for many years, a Hall of Fame broadcaster. I'm sure his father did a lot of games where they had a military flyover. But oftentimes, when white men are anti-military, they get the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's the reason they don't thank the military when they do every game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, let me simplify it, Charlton. If these had been two black broadcasters making those type of statements, they would not be working this coming weekend.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say. They can speak for themselves, but I love giving out that Veterans Crisis Hotline. And just for Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, a lot of those guys, my father's a veteran. He flew on airplanes for the Air Force. I have a nephew that served in the Marines and a brother who served in the Army. And they fought for this country, and they take a lot of pride in this country because they saw people that they loved that lost their lives defending this country so that guys like Joe Buck and Troy Aikman can make millions insulting our military. But they're white, and I'm sure nobody's going to say anything about it but us. Big C, I know everybody has to get out and vote. There's a lot of things going on. If you want to get registered, I think we only have 12 days left. And that's on my calendar. And sometimes my calendar might run a little bit backwards, if that makes sense. Text the word vote. Even Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, you guys can vote too. And you're going to vote for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. That's what you said, that they won't allow flyovers, but I believe they will. Text the word vote to 26797. That's text the word vote to 26797. Let's make this the biggest vote in the history of the universe. A lot of people are talking about voting. Big C, what's another message you can give to make sure that people gotta understand they gotta vote? Down south where you are, I saw, I think her name is the mayor of Atlanta, Lisa Bottoms, I believe. and she was saying how people are still standing in lines for like 8 hours to vote. Big C, your thoughts?
It's called voter suppression, Charlton. And you have to understand that everybody who is going to vote is not even voting for president. You don't have to vote for a president when you vote. Senators and congressmen, those are a lot of people that are being voted for also.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people have left the presidential candidate unmarked.
Yeah.
But it is important to vote regardless of how you vote.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to correct you. I'm going to say vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I'm tired of racism. I really am. Out here in California, I know I always talk about the South. I saw a kind of a broken down pickup truck that must have been like 8 feet high in the air. And it was driving through a neighborhood, and it had American flag, and then it had Trump flags. It's like they were, I don't even know how to explain it, Big C, but there's a mentality with it. You can see it, you can even feel it. And that's permeating California. I'm tired of that garbage, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, if you're tired of racism, you have to leave America. It's not going to leave. I know not in my lifetime. This is what America is built on. This is what America fights to keep. Regardless of which election cycle that we go through, it's permeated every day in the Senate, Charlton.
Yeah.
It tells fast. You think about how quick it was to get a Supreme Court justice on the bench.
Yeah.
And we've had Americans without any type of financial relief since the end of July. That shows the importance. You have to understand that they don't mind starving and hurting black people and hurting an equal number of white people.
Yeah.
Because they still have more white people that are not hurting.
Yeah.
This is what you understand. This is systemic racism through politics.
Yeah, it's a lot of classism going on too. Mitch McConnell, what a shame of a person. That's why people got to vote. So I know they've already had this debate, and I know we're on right now. I don't really know what happened, but sometimes when we talk about things and we go back and predict what's going to happen, it comes true. So we're looking at the presidential debate tonight, the final one, before the election. And what will Americans think with over 229,000 fatalities, all because Donald Trump lied? He could have just told the truth and people could have prepared for it, Big C. He lied about COVID-19. Now he's making fun of COVID-19 at his rallies, as even his wife is too sick to travel because she has COVID-19. And here he is making fun of his own sick wife, as he says, all they talk about is COVID. And then he has his secret Chinese bank account. He cheats on his taxes, and he's rushing to get his Supreme Court so they can pack the court. Give me a feeling of what you think we're going to see tonight, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, what I'm feeling tonight, this will be an attack on Joe Biden's family. Donald Trump is not going to talk about health care for Americans, job creation for Americans, how he's going to attack this COVID-19, Charlton. What is his plan for the next 4 years as a president? You know, he's not going to talk about anything that's relevant to American society. He's going to spend his time attacking Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, about some alleged incident that has never been verified. But ironically, it comes up 2 weeks prior to the election because you've run out of things to stuff on.
Yeah.
This is not about helping the American people, Charlton. It's about helping himself.
I want to ask you, because he has almost all of his family members employed in the White House, which is a violation of the Emoluments Clause, Big C. Do you think Joe Biden's going to go back at him? And don't just sit there and pretend he didn't say anything negative. You think he'll push back, or will he just take the high road, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, sitting up talking about Trump's family in the White House, which everybody has known that it's been there for 4 years, what good does it do? I mean, it's been accepted by the United States Senate. They've been okay with that because their families work in these nepotism situations also.
Yeah.
But this is just an attack on Biden's family because he has nothing else that he can tax Biden on.
Yeah.
Biden is an old white man just like Trump is an old white man.
Yeah.
It was easy attacking Clinton because she was an old white woman. But now Trump is attacking himself. The thing you have to look at, everything that Trump says about Biden tonight is what he means about himself and his family.
Yeah. Yeah, we know it's all fair and love and war. You got to call a snake a snake. If not, people might think it's a worm. It's all fair and love and war. And I wish everybody the best. Please go out and vote. It's so important. Even Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, vote. And tell a veteran that you appreciate their service. Don't just criticize their flyovers. Big C, I want to run into the world of the NFL. I know we have some Major League Baseball World Series to come on, so we'll go back and forth. And I want to get your thoughts on the NFL reports. Before I get into baseball, the NFL reports that pushing the Super Bowl back, Super Bowl 55, to March of 2021 as opposed to playing it in February, that it's under consideration because of COVID-19 contingency plans. We can move the Super Bowl back as far as 4 weeks. Give me your thoughts on that, Big C.
You know, Charlton, we had discussed that a couple of weeks ago, and I had told you that the Super Bowl most likely would be pushed back because all of these NFL games are not going to be played on time. And to get in a full schedule, you're going to have to move the Super Bowl back. It's not a problem for the NFL because they own all their stadiums. They don't have to share stadiums. So time frame with them is no big deal, and they played the Super Bowl in all types of inclement weather, and the weather's really not that bad in March down in Tampa.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Even if it gets rain, I guess it's kind of a warm rain. And if they have Troy Aikman and Joe Buck doing it, I'm sure they won't have to fly over. That makes sense to you. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, it might be a little foggy, and they might not be able to see him through the mist.
Yeah, but they hate Colin Kaepernick for saying everyone deserves liberty and justice for all. It's all fair, love, and war. And speaking of liberty and justice for all, when I'm watching the World Series last night, I'm going politics and sports. It's like the Big C Sports Show. It's politics and sports. You just have to use your voice and say, Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast, and it pops up. I want to give them good old boys from Tampa some libations. So they were celebrating last night because I feel they thought they were going to get swept. But if you think about it, through all the struggles, all the moments when it looked like that he would be dropped down in the lineup or out of the lineup altogether, you have Brandon Lowe. Think about this, Big. He believed he became the first player to hit 2 opposite field home runs in the World Series game, and the Rays bullpen bent, but it did not break. They held on for a nail-biting 6-4 win over the LA Dodgers last night to even the series at 1 game apiece. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, this is the greatest part about the World Series, Charlton, is that you just can't always count out your opponent.
Yeah.
You know, you got the 2 best teams in baseball playing in the Fall Classic. And last night you never know who's going to be the superstar, who's going to be the next guy up to make it shine.
Yeah.
We saw that in Game 1 when we saw Mookie Betts, duplicate a feat that had only been duplicated 99 years prior to him doing it last night with a walk and a stolen base in the same inning.
Yeah.
Then last night we see history being made.
Yeah.
2 opposite field home runs by a guy who was hitting 109, who thought he should have been on the bench. But, you as a manager, you have to go with your gut feeling sometimes.
Yeah.
And this is where it is. Don't drop him out of the lineup. Just drop him down in the lineup where he has an opportunity to see more pitches.
Yeah.
And last night that paid off for the Rays with Lowe going yard twice.
Yeah. Sometimes it's managers do things with their gut as opposed to the analytics, and I think Roberts is going to have to use his gut tonight too. And also, when you want to use your gut and you want to watch the game, make sure you get the Big C burger. It is a really tasty burger. It comes with exotic meats, and you get it at participating restaurants, and that's when you can really make your gut feel good. It's always nice to have a good stuffed gut. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, a good meal is always good to have. Just make sure you don't eat too much and fall asleep and miss the game.
I understand. It's all fair and love to war, Big C. Also, for the 116th World Series 2020, you think about the Tampa Bay Rays starter, Blake Snell. He had not allowed a hit, striking out 2 Dodgers in each of the first 4 innings, Big C. The guy's amazing. He's a southpaw. The 5th ended when Snell's dream of a no-hitter. I mean, he thought he was going to get it, but it ended in the 5th. And think about it. With 2 out, he walked Kiki Hernandez, and he served up a home run to Chris Taylor, who was amazing. And after a walk to Mookie Betts and a single to Corey Seager, Big C, his night was over. But what a great start he had, and I think that momentum carried them to win that game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you can spot your team to a lead, Charlton, and hold your opponent in check, this is what you ask from your starters. You always like for your starters to get you at least 6 1/3, possibly 7 innings in a game, and that way it's not much stress on your bullpen.
Yeah.
And you saw that last night. When the Rays went into this game, they went in with a heavy left-handed lineup.
Yep.
From batters to pitchers, Charlton, and it paid dividends against the Dodgers last night.
Give me a feeling on, Dodgers, they have, if any team can come back from a deficit, I think it would be the Dodgers. This game is so important tonight. Major League Baseball World Series by the numbers. In the 17 World Series, Big C, that have started 1-1, 1 apiece, the Game 3 winner is 12-4 in winning the World Series. Who needs it more than the other tonight, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, today is actually a travel day. They're not playing tonight. But, the pressure right now is on the Dodgers because the Rays came back and took game 2. So they basically have some momentum going into the game. And as you look at game 1, the Rays were the ones that were scoring late in the game. I know the Dodgers had a lot of runs early, but the Rays came and put a few runs on the board late, and then they continued that in game 2. Tonight is an off night. They'll resume game 3 tomorrow night.
Yep.
Right now, I think that the Rays have the Dodgers thinking because the Dodgers have been in this position many times before, 3 of the last 4 years, and they've come up empty after the series was over.
Man, I got to ask you this question. I know sometimes people get used to habits, and people are creatures of habit, Big C. That's why I always take the different way when I'm going home, because I want people to notice me as a creature of habit. If you're Dave Roberts and you know Clayton Kershaw had his best probably pitching outing in game 1, and it's hard for him to repeat that, if they need to see him again, would you feel starting him again, or would you place him in the middle of the pitching order so he doesn't have to get exposed? Big C, your thoughts?
No, he'll be the starter in game 4. They're going to start Walker Buehler, who is the ace of their staff, in game 3.
Yeah.
And this is the way that Roberts set it up. You'll see Clayton Kershaw in game 4. And they'll hope that he can duplicate the performance he had in game 1.
Yeah, well, I know that makes a lot of Dodgers players nervous because he was he was shaken up in the first inning, but he got out of it. And sometimes you gotta, who's that good old boy that said, you gotta know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, and know when to run. I think that's Kenny Rogers who is doing his thing. So we'll see what happens. I really want to see LA get another championship. And yes, I am partial to you good old boys down south. You guys got college football wrapped up. Let us have the pro games. I want to speak of the pro games. We have an NFL football game tonight, and it might be the most exciting game on Thursday because it's the only one on Thursday. Are you turned on at all by the Giants and the Eagles? I never would have thought that these two great franchises would be struggling the way they are at this point of the season. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, what's ironic is that this game means something. The winner of this game tonight between the Giants and the Eagles will be in first place in the NFC East. And you think about that's important. So to be in first place after 7 games of the season, Charleston, this is what they're striving for tonight.
Yeah.
So this game is very important to all of those players. The Giants, I give the Giants a slight advantage in this game.
Really?
Because the Eagles have found ways not to win. And the winner of this game, Charleston, ironically, will be not only in first place, but on a winning streak.
Isn't that incredible? When you think about these rookie quarterbacks that are, Tua's going to get his chance with Miami. Herbert's gotten his chance with the LA Chargers. And now I know you've already looked at, Jalen Hurts. He's had the chance to come in and play some kind of especially down situations, Big C. At some point in time, I've seen Carson Wentz running a lot, trying to at least run around the way he used to when he was younger. But that same type of running got him, broken up down in Los Angeles at the Coliseum. At some point in time, do you just automatically have time for Jalen Hurts to come in and take over a couple of downs? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's been a situational thing with Jalen Hurts that they tried to incorporate him into the offense.
Yeah.
It's up to them whether they're going to give him a bigger role or not. But that's always predicated on the team's offensive productivity. If Carson Wentz continues to improve, then that's going to be a limited opportunity for Jalen Hurts. But if he struggles tonight, you may see him in a greater role. Yeah,
you may do that. The Eagles are 1-4-1 coming off a home loss to the Baltimore Ravens, and that was right when Carson Wentz was stopped at the goal line. I thought if they would have used Jalen Hurts in that play, they had a better chance of getting in. Philadelphia has some momentum. They do have a little bit. They outscored the Ravens 22-6 in the final quarter to get back in the game. And then the Giants. I really want to get your thoughts on the Giants and this already talk of tanking for Trevor. Why would Trevor Lawrence want to play for this team? He might do a Peyton Manning and say, I don't want to play football, I want to play baseball, Big C. Or John Elway did that back in the day from Stanford. So the Giants are 1-5. They picked up their first win of the season on Sunday, and they edged the Washington football team 2019. They only had 112 passing yards from your friend Daniel Jones. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's no such thing as tanking in the NFL. That farce was made up last year by the media about the Miami Dolphins. You have to understand, there's 53 players on the roster.
Yeah.
All these players are playing for their job every year. There's no guaranteed contract in the NFL. So don't think that these grown men are out there tanking so that the organization can potentially draft somebody else, Dalton, because they may not have a job the following year if they're out there intentionally losing. So that's a farce if you ever think that an NFL team is tanking.
Yeah, well, I've seen North Dallas 40 like 20 times, and I think some guys were tanking for something big. See, the point spread, the Eagles are favored by 4.5 points over the Giants that had 112 passing yards. I mean, 112 passing yards, that's like throwing for 27 yards per quarter. How in the world can you couldn't do that if you tried, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, they have not been the best. They have not been able to block people, Charlton. Their receiving core has been decimated this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at some point, Daniel Jones, the light has to come on in his head.
Yeah. Well, maybe the light is coming on in his head, and maybe he's out too much. You know, his friend Sam Darnold had mononucleosis. Maybe you got to turn the lights out when you're in New York City, if that makes sense to you. I wish everybody nothing but the best. We're going to take what's called the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about what's going on in the world of NFL football. And I can't wait to get back and see what happened with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And will Troy Aikman and Joy Buck stand for the flyover in the next game that they call for Fox Sports? We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. And I really appreciate, like Barbara Eaton from I Dream of Jeannie, she told Larry Hagman, "What do you want, master?" He said, "I want to hear a Big C Sports podcast." And you can hear us as the leaders in sports and politics all over this great country. Tonight, Big C, I love so much going on. Baseball's on pause. We have the politics, the political fight between who's going to be the next president of the United States. And I'm going to ask the universe to make it Joe Biden. I'm tired of this garbage and this racism, this vitriol that people feel emboldened to have. But I want to ask you about some football. Down there in the South, I know you love the fried food. The New Orleans Saints wide receiver Michael Thomas, his status is yet to be determined for Sunday's game against the Carolina Panthers after injuring his hamstring in practice. The three-time Pro Bowler has not yet played since week 1 when he suffered a high ankle sprain. How important is it to have him back in their offense, because they don't look as explosive as they could, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they've been struggling without Michael Thomas in the lineup. You got to realize he set an NFL record last year with 149 receptions. And that's sorely missed out of your passing game when you have a go-to receiver, and Drew Brees has not been in sync with his other receiving core this year.
Yeah, is it just, you know, Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer, obviously. We know that. But isn't it something how even their head coach will bring in Taysom Hill, and I don't know if that's to give Drew Brees a break or to let him see a different angle or to benefit the offense, or are they really trying to phase out Drew Brees? And that may sound like it's anathema, but give me your feeling. Are they trying to hide him, or are they trying to phase him out, Big C? Your thoughts?
This has been part of the New Orleans offense for the past 3 years. Taysom Hill has come in and had mock plays set up just for him and his skill set. So this is nothing new for the Saints to do right now.
Yeah, well, I like Drew Brees, and I know once a quarterback has his groove, it's also helpful to pull you out to the sideline, even if it's just a play or two, and let them see a different perspective before they go back in the battle. That's just my opinion. Also, the Baltimore Ravens, this team, I'm telling you, they know their biggest nemesis. It used to be the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe their biggest nemesis now would be the Pittsburgh Steelers, because they're in the same division and they got to face them twice. They've already faced the Chiefs once, and they won't see them again unless they meet in the playoffs. The Ravens acquired defensive end Yannick Ngakoue in a trade with the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday. So the Vikings have given up on the season. Minnesota will reportedly receive a 2021 third-round draft pick and a 2022 conditional fifth-round pick, Big C. So today's trade marks the second deal involving this I think it's going to be all-star player, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he has been an all-star player, Charlton. He led the Jacksonville Jaguars in sacks last year.
Yep.
And matter of fact, when you look at the Ravens' defensive line now, two of their starters, Ngakoue and Campbell, were with the with the Jaguars last year, and they've had one of the best defensive lines in pro football over the last 4 years. So this is a huge upgrade for Baltimore, and they're probably still not finished making deals yet.
Well, let me ask you a question. the Vikings have struggled. They were in the NFC playoffs last year, and they got knocked out by San Francisco. You have a quarterback in Kirk Cousins who threw 3 interceptions before halftime, so he's not getting the big C burger. What are the Vikings doing trying to make their defense better? Shouldn't they be looking at the guy that threw 3 interceptions before halftime, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, no, he has guaranteed money. Your cousin does in Minnesota, so he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So you have to start blaming people who make less money.
That doesn't make any sense to me, though, because the players know the difference. I mean, you're getting rid of a guy that's been an all-pro player and is going to go to a better team, and you're going to hope that some guy playing in college right now is going to make you better than the all-pro player that you're giving away. But, hey, it's all fair and love and war. When you think about something, Big C, the NFL is going through a lot of changes, and there's nothing wrong with that. People got to adapt to change. The NFL announced today that Sunday's Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Oakland Raiders game, 2 Pirates. You ever see 2 Pirates collide, Big C? I know they did it in the Super Bowl back in the day, and the Buccaneers beat the Raiders. But the game was originally scheduled for an 8:20 p.m. kickoff Sunday on NBC Sports. Now it will start at 4:05 p.m. on Fox Sports. The league said it's made the move out of an abundance of caution to ensure that a game would be available for the fans on Sunday Night Football. The Seahawks and the Cardinals game will now be played on Sunday night. Do you like what they're doing, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the league was correct in doing that in an abundance of caution, and they did this because of the COVID breakout with the Raiders' offensive line. The Raiders have put all 5 of their offensive linemen, Charlton, on COVID reserve.
Yeah.
So they don't know if they'll be able to play the game this week. So the league guaranteed the fans that they would have a game to be able to watch on Sunday night because the Raiders game is potentially going to be canceled.
Yeah. So do you think the league, at some point in time, when I'm driving and it says, construction ahead, make a U-turn or a detour, I think we can't blame anybody. I mean, maybe you can, maybe you can't. But when I look at what happened with the Raiders and all their guys not following protocol, John Gruden not wearing his mask on the sidelines at times, and players going to a function and they did not have the right protocol, and now their offensive line is sick. We've seen it happen in Tennessee. We've seen it happen in New England. That's why I think Cam Newton played so horribly. I don't think he's recovered from the COVID. That's my opinion. I know people can say, no, he tested negative. If I watched how listless he seemed to be in that game, there was something still affecting him. It was more than just a lack of practice. But have you ever seen Pirates get replaced by birds, if that makes sense to you, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, this is a scenario that we opened up the show with, Charlton, and this is something that's going to continue. The NFL potentially moving the Super Bowl back to March.
Yeah.
But COVID-19 is going to continue throughout the NFL season. There's no way that you can keep all the players protected and healthy.
Yeah, but they're going to go straight ahead. Iceberg, straight ahead! They're going to keep going straight ahead. I just hope that the doctors will come out with a way to treat people better. Maybe if we had 14 doctors like your friend Donald Trump had, but he's got to use all of his doctor visits for the next 12 days because he's going to be out of office, voted out on November 3rd, and then kicked out on January 20th. That's my opinion. NFL football, Cowboys, Mike McCarthy responds to stinging criticisms. It was voiced by several unnamed players. You've been criticized many times in life, and I know at times you didn't get along with coaches, but if you ever had something to say to a coach, why not just go to the coach's face and have a man-to-man talk? But see your thoughts?
Well, because Jerry Jones will cut you. Because Jerry Jones is the one who made the bad decision about Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
If you go in and tell Mike McCarthy about your feelings, you think he's not going to tell Jerry Jones and you be out on the waiver wire that afternoon?
Yeah.
This is the reason why.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, too. The anonymous is something that we don't want to recognize, McCarthy said. And he said it's important to recognize anything and everything for a teachable moment. How about the teachable moment is to give the keys to that Ferrari or Bentley and back to Jerry Jones and say, Jerry, you have $1 billion organization, the most valuable NFL franchise in the United States, and I'm not the right guy for the job, so I'm willing to give the keys back to you. That would be the right thing to do if you care about the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Does that make sense, or am I naive, Big C? Your thoughts?
I think that you're naive, Charlton. I don't know why people keep thinking that the Dallas Cowboys are a great franchise. They are a valuable franchise financially.
Yeah.
But as far as being good, they're a long ways from being good, Charlton, for almost a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, they had the 1 year under Dak Prescott as a rookie 5 years ago when they made the playoffs But what have they done prior to that, 5 years prior to that, and 5 years after that? Nothing, Charlton. This organization is not great. People are living on their laurels saying, wow, the Cowboys have won 5 Super Bowls in their history.
Yeah.
But, they haven't won 5 playoff games since they won a Super Bowl. So they're not a good team.
Yeah. This is an out in the blue thought. We have NBA basketball players coaches are coming from the broadcast booth, like the Van Gundy, and getting into coaching. We've seen that many times before. I know we talked about Troy Aikman not liking the military flyovers because, he never served in this country, so he doesn't understand why they do it. At what point in time, and I know he wanted to be a part of the organization with the Dallas Cowboys, since he doesn't like military flyovers and he doesn't know how to turn his microphone off when he's expressing that to the country, would Jerry Jones be willing to talk to a guy that won him a couple of Super Bowls, Big C, about some kind of role with the Cowboys? Your thoughts?
It would not make a difference bringing in a former player with the Cowboys, Charlton. They're not going to turn around that organization. You have to look at the mentality and mindset of the players that come into the pros these days out of college and where they are mentally. Jerry Jones is not paying anybody, so you don't see superstars.
Yeah.
The 8 guys that he pays are not even playing right now. Ezekiel Elliott and Amari Cooper are the only guys that are making money. Well, Lawrence is making money.
Yeah.
But you got 3 guys that are making $20 million a year. You got a running back who can't play in the game because he's sitting on the bench. You got a receiver who can't catch the ball because the quarterback can't get it to him.
Yeah.
And you got a defensive end that can't get a sack because he's not tough. So the 3 guys in the lineup that's making the most money are non-productive.
Yeah.
And everybody else is basically practice roster players.
Yeah. Well, the Dallas Cowboys will have to figure it out. They do have a big, beautiful stadium, AT&T Stadium, and it's all fair and love and war. But this is the same organization that with Tom Landry had the helm, and they were always on TV, so they have to be America's favorite team. They were always on TV, but the last 25 years, they haven't been a lot to write home about. I know we talked earlier about the Las Vegas Raiders. It's still a shame not having them in Oakland, where they cut their teeth in Oakland many, many moons ago before they went to Los Angeles, and now they just left the whole state of California. But the Raiders will place 4 starting offensive linemen and safety Jonathan Abram on the reserve COVID-19 list after all 5 players were deemed high-risk contacts on Thursday. And you got center Rodney Hudson, guard Gabe Jackson, Denzel Good, and tackle Colton Miller and Abram Bixie. At some point in time, we got to keep looking at just putting players on pause. Will the NFL seek to expand their rosters even more so? Because even in going into 2021, it's going to make more sense at some time, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, what they did was expand the practice roster, so they have many more players on reserve now in training camp, so they have players that are readily available.
Yeah. I hope that the Raiders can get it all figured out, but I know if I saw Cam Newton, and I know we're going to do Big C's NFL thoughts tomorrow in your picks for tomorrow, but when I see COVID, it's like they're putting people out for a week. Doctors are saying you need a 14-day pause. And so they're bringing people back in because whatever testing they're using, they're saying positive and false positive. I don't know how you get anybody healthy if you can't let people sit out for 2 weeks. Cam Newton didn't sit out 2 weeks, I don't think. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, at some point you'll have to stop being naive and thinking this is about the players. This is about those $30 million paydays that the teams get for playing the game. That's what the broadcast company pays the NFL. So it's not about the players. You can replace players. Even if you cancel a game or delay a game, you'll find enough bodies to put on the field. Yeah,
well, I think you're right on that, too, and it's all fair and love and war. NFL, another challenge. And, again, I wish Ron Rivera, I know he's going through some situations with his personal health, and I don't know why he's still out coaching, but maybe he has to keep his mind focused. But Ron Rivera cites his gut feelings for Washington's football team. And when you think about gut feelings, Big C, and he has a quarterback situation, he said, and this is he's going through personal stuff too, but he said that seeing a second chance or a chance to contend in a weakened NFC East is important. When asked Wednesday whether there was a cutoff point for Kyle Allen, who I believe was 0-8 in his last 8 games, Rivera said that there wasn't, and that there wasn't one for Haskins either. How does that make sense? The guy's lost 8 games in a row, 2 this year, and 6 his last games last year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he's lost those last 8 games under Ron Rivera's tutelage.
Yeah.
So he's comfortable with that. He said he's going with his gut feeling. He has a gut feeling that Kyle Allen will keep losing, and he's okay with that. He feels he has job security.
At what point in time do players have what's called a mutiny? And not necessarily a mutiny, but to come around the coach and say, look, coach, this is not working for everybody else. I know you have a lot of faith in that guy, but he's costing our careers too, because there's no guarantee that any of these guys will be back next year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to assume that you've never been on an NFL roster and you don't understand what the waiver wire is. Unless you are that superstar on the team,
yeah,
you don't have the right to go in and say that. Because if you're just a fill-in player or a guy on the sideline, you'll be on the waiver wire if you go in with that type of attitude.
Well, they spent money on a first-round draft pick in Hoskins, so why would he not be able to go to his coaching staff and say those feelings? Tom Brady, all the time, you see him yelling on the sideline at his players and also coaches too about what he expects and doesn't expect. So why would it be any different for a number 1 draft pick, Big C? Your thoughts?
You know how much money Dwayne Haskins makes, Charlton?
But he's a number 1 draft pick. It's not about the money, it's about the stature.
You know how much money he makes?
No, do you?
Yes, I do.
How much does he make?
$1.4 million against the cap this year. You know how much Kyle Allen gets against the cap?
How much?
Kyle Allen's getting $7. You know how much money Alex Smith is getting? $22 million. So you tell me which one of those got the biggest mouth.
Well, Alex Smith may have $22 million, but last I checked, he was not a starter. So what you're saying about making more money doesn't make any sense. They had a guy that's making $1 million. He was a starter until he got benched. Now they got a guy making $7 million who's a starter. The guy making the most money is not the starter, so how does that make sense, Big C?
The guy making the most money is the second-team quarterback, Charlton, because he was going to make that money. It was guaranteed, so they kept him on the roster. They signed Kyle Allen in the offseason. They gave Kyle Allen $5.5 million more than what Dwayne Haskins was getting, and he was the starter. So you tell me going into the season, who did they think more of?
Yeah. Well, it's all fair in love and war, but when you're losing enough, I think at some point in time, you're going to have the players go and have a mutiny. The Dallas Cowboys did it to Jerry Jones back in the day when they wouldn't sign Emmitt Smith, and it changed things because the players spoke up and they didn't have that, oh, I'm afraid I might get cut mentality. They happened to go in and win a Super Bowl because of that, but it's all fair.
But you had a team that had won a Super Bowl the previous year. That is a difference. You had an organization that was winning. You had a head coach with some balls named Jimmy Johnson. You have a losing organization in Washington. You have a whole new regime who is trying to find its footing, and you don't have those established players in Washington like you had in Dallas coming off of a Super Bowl victory.
Yeah, well, it's all fair in love and war. I also see how Charles Haley beat up a couple of guys, but it just takes people speaking up, and that's just my opinion. But I also want to jump on the world of college football. And speaking of things changing, sometimes things go back to the past. And I hope that everybody gets registered to vote. Not everybody's registered. They're saying this is going to be the biggest vote in the history of the United States. And if you don't want to be involved, then you're going to be on the sideline complaining. In college football, the biggest college football game on Saturday is happening in Dallas. You would think it would be the Texas. Or you would think it would be maybe Texas A&M. Big C is number 9 Cincinnati. At number 16 SMU out of Dallas. 2 of the 9 unbeaten teams left in the FBS. Big C, your thoughts?
And these are the only 2 teams that are left undefeated, Charlton, in Conference USA. With Conference USA, if you run the table and you go undefeated, you have the potential of making the college football playoff.
Yeah.
And that's how big this game is, Charlton. When you think about Cincinnati with Luke Finkle and what he has done with that program, the second-best team in the state of Ohio, behind Ohio State. And then when you look Sonny Dykes down at SMU, this is the first time that SMU has been 5-0 in decades.
Yeah, remember, they used to be the I won't say the Alabama of college football, but they were definitely down in Texas. They were on par with any other program in Texas. SMU, are they the best team in Texas now? Think about the days of Eric Dickerson and Craig James. They called them the Pony Express, and now they're at the top of the mountain again, having a lot more success than Texas and Texas A&M. Your thoughts?
Well, SMU, when you look at their starting quarterback, Shane Buechele,
he's good.
He was the starter in Texas 3 years ago until they had the new change of coaching staff. And, you know, Herman decided he wanted to go with Ellinger, so Buechele transferred. and he has taken SMU to double-digit victories last year and will do it again this year.
Yeah, so you can win with a Mustang. You don't always need a cow on the sideline as a mascot, if that makes sense to you. I don't know which tastes better, a cow or a Mustang, but I'm sure some people have their preferences. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if you're in Europe, horse is always on the menu.
Horse is always on the menu, and we thank the horses for their love and service and dedication to our gluttony. It's all fair in Leavenworth. College football, Ohio State athletic director. You know, a Buckeye is a nut, but Gene Smith is not a nut. Or maybe he is, Big C. He says that fans could return to the Ohio Stadium in 2020. And Smith says the Big Ten, they're going to reevaluate on a week-by-week basis on a decision to allow fans in the stands and to what capacity. There would be no need for significant drops in positive COVID-19 rates across 11 different states that make up the Big Ten. Is that foolishness? Is he just getting in line with everybody else, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, COVID-19 is rising across all 11 Big Ten states, Charlton, but they're going to put the fans in the stands. I mean, you know, so many people have become immune to the talk of COVID-19,
yeah.
And it's all about money. I don't care how you cross this line, Charlton. It's all about money, putting butts in the seats, putting players on the field.
It's interesting to me, Carl, for Gene Smith to say that, even here in Santa Clara County for the 49ers, you know, Governor Gavin Newsom said no fans, he said fans could be in a 20% capacity, but it was Santa Clara County that said no. In our county, we're not going to do that, and they're going to keep it to the way they have no fans, at least as of today. Who knows if somebody offers them a paper bag down in Santa Clara County, if they may change that ruling after the weekend. So when you think about college football this week coming up, Big C, in scanning the odds board, the good old boys down in Las Vegas that you tend to love so much, for the ACC, in top 25 action this weekend in college football, no game stands out more than number one Clemson hosting Syracuse. As of Wednesday, the Tigers are listed at 46-point favorites. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you look at the performance that they had last week against Georgia Tech, where they outscored them by 66 points, I think that they're being kind of generous in this game, Las Vegas is, as far as the point spread. The Orangemen, you know, their best chance is, Charlton, is, you know, they can recover the onside kick at the start of the game
yeah.
and stay in it.
Yeah. Well, the Syracuse almost got them a couple of years ago down in Clemson. I think Clemson needed something happened right around the goal line. I don't know if it was a defensive stop or a late score, but they played them close, and I don't know if the same personnel exists for Syracuse. But let me get your feelings, too. If you're a 46-point underdog and you're going into a game ranked, you know, playing the number one team in the country, at some point in time, do you even say, we're going to, like Troy Aikman and Joe Buck said, let's save the jet fuel and not even go to the game? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, the biggest thing for Syracuse is to try to cover the spread.
Yeah.
That would be an emotional victory for them.
Yeah.
But if you're going into a game and you're a 46-point dog,
yeah, and
that spread gets covered, you're really, really a bad team.
Are you saying that they should gamble on not losing the spread?
I mean, this is tough for a college player, you know, morality-wise.
Yeah.
When you're looking at that scenario.
Yeah.
Is that here it is, you're out there working and trying to compete.
Yeah.
And you're knowing going into the game that you're a 7-touchdown underdog.
Yeah. Well, let me make sure I understand you, Big C. I know you have a lot of paper bags last time I saw your property. Are you saying the Syracuse players should go play it on the spread? Or what are you saying? Can you clarify?
Well, I don't know if they got, you know, sports betting in upstate New York yet, Charlton, but if they were in the Philadelphia area, I think I'd go put my lunch money on the game.
That's funny. Maybe some guys will. It's all fair in Love and War. And think about Love and War, those Alabama wide receivers, they're catching everything but COVID. Hopefully they don't catch COVID from their great coach, old St. Nick. Alabama's Heisman Trophy hype, it may center on Jones, the quarterback. He's amazing, Big C. He's doing his thing. He's the first Alabama quarterback to pass for 400-plus yards in 3 straight games. Meanwhile, it's hard to single out the team's best receiver, whether it's Smith or Waddle or Mitchie, Big C. They've combined to catch 77 of Jones' 90 passes, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, everybody talked about how great that Alabama offense was last year with Tua. But Jones has stepped in and made people forget about Tua and every great quarterback that has played there at the University of Alabama.
Yeah.
But that receiving core might be even better than the one that they had last year when they had 2 first-round draft picks, the Ruggs and Judy.
Yeah.
You know, that went on to the NFL. Right now they got a set of triplets that is as good as any team in the college football rankings.
Yeah, Alabama's been able to. Nick Saban, he has a lot of paperbacks too. It's not that Aflac duck on TV that's helping him win. He has a lot of paperbacks down there by that lake. If that makes sense to you, Big C. People say, "What? I gotta jump in the lake." He says there's a gift for you at the bottom. If that makes sense to you, it's all fair level war. And speaking of lakes and Alabama, I want to touch on the NFL running backs. Another great one that came out of Alabama. His name is Derrick Henry. When we look at Big C's thoughts on the top rushers in the NFL, I wonder if it's going to help them get to the playoffs. When you think about Dak Prescott, he was leading the NFL in passing, but the Dallas Cowboys only had 1 win on the season, Big C. So it's not that you're throwing for a lot of touchdowns or rushing for a lot of yards that's going to help you win. But I want to bring up a couple of players. Give me your feeling if you think you'll see them in the playoffs. Number 1 rushing in the NFL is none other than Tennessee running back out of Alabama. His name is Henry, and he deserves the Big C burger, Big C. That good boy, he only has 123 attempts, but he's rushed for almost 600 yards, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Tennessee is a surefire team to be in the NFL. I mean, you got to give a lot of kudos to Ryan Tannehill, what he's doing at quarterback.
Yep.
But Derrick Henry has picked up where he's left off last year, getting the Titans to the AFC final.
Yeah, he wasn't starting off that good earlier this year, but he's like that locomotive. They start off slow and they finish fast, Big C. Also, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, another good boy out of LSU, playing for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's only carried the rock 107 times, has 505 yards on the season, averaging 4.7 a carry. Your thoughts?
Well, coming off his best game of the season as a rookie, he has Patrick Mahomes. And as long as you got Patrick Mahomes, you know you have a shot at the AFC Championship.
Yeah, and then this is something that kind of, maybe he's wasting his time up in Minnesota. Dalvin Cook out of Florida State, playing for the Minnesota Vikings. He's carried the ball 92 times. He has 489 yards, averaging 5.3 a pop. Listen up, Kirk Cousins, who threw 3 interceptions before halftime. Cook has only carried the ball 92 times. Henry's carried the ball 123 times. Cook has 489 yards, just about 100 yards behind Henry, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Cook missed the last game, Charlton, with a leg strain, and your cousin was just giving away the ball with interceptions, you know, and they played a rookie running back.
Yeah.
But Dalvin Cook, the Minnesota Vikings go as he goes.
Yeah.
If he's not carrying the ball, your cousin is going to throw away the ball. So I don't see the Minnesota Vikings and your cousins making the playoffs.
Yeah. That's all fair. 11 war. You got a good old boy by the name of Todd Gurley down in Atlanta, and he's carried the ball 99 times. Why not just make it 100? 99 times, 422 yards. I know we're not going to see the Falcons anywhere near the playoff unless Arthur Blank buys up all tickets, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, they'll be sitting around eating chicken wings come playoffs, Charlton, but Todd Gurley doesn't get the ball enough for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, chicken wings, or maybe they'll trade the chicken wings for the Big C burger. It's an exotic burger. It has a lot of exotic meats on it. It tastes very good. A guy that I kind of feel for, because I think that without Dak Prescott, he's really up against the wall, if that makes sense to you. That's Ezekiel Elliott for the Dallas Cowboys, came out of Ohio State. He had 101 yards, actually 101 carries, only 413 yards. He's averaging 4.1 yards a carry. And without Dak Prescott, there's no fear of having to worry about that run option quarterback now because you don't have Dak anymore. So that's going to expose Elliott even more, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I think opposing defenses want Ezekiel Elliott to get the football because as many times as he's been laying it on the ground fumbling-wise. But I think Ezekiel Elliott, before the next couple of weeks, might be changing zip codes, Charlton. I don't think he'll be a Dallas Cowboy at the end of this season.
That would be breaking news. I wonder if that would make Dak Prescott happy if he's coming back. But when you watch Derrick Henry run, and when you watch Cook run, and when you watch Kenyon Drake run, Elliott used to run like that 3 years ago, but he's not running like that now. The last guy I want to get on that most likely is not going to be anywhere near the playoff. There's 2 more guys. One is Joe Mixon out of Cincinnati. He's carried the ball 119 times, 428 yards, 3.6 average. He's not going to make the playoffs, but I really like the way he runs the ball, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he has a suspect offensive line and a rookie quarterback, Charlton, so it's very easy to key on it because that offensive line hasn't been protecting the quarterback. He's been sacked the most of any quarterback in the NFL this season, so that you know that the running back is also going to take a beating.
Yeah, he's going to take a beating. You know, that's a good old boy in Green Bay. His name's Aaron Jones. He had 75 carries. That's it. 389 yards. He's averaging 5.2 yards a carry. And Aaron Rodgers still managed to throw a couple of touchdowns instead of handing the ball off to him last week, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Tampa Bay defense was able to shut him down.
Yeah.
I mean, they got the best defense in the NFC, or potentially the best defense. And so they knew exactly what to expect from Aaron Jones. If they stop him, then all the pressure was going to be on Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I know we're going to see a lot of good football. Would you believe yards per carry? The leading yards per carry in the NFL, 51 carries, 370 yards, 7.3 yards per carry. His name is Kyler Murray. He's a quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's part of their offensive game plan, Charlton, is to keep him out on the edge. He's very elusive. He's very speedy. And he puts a different type of pressure on opposing defense. He has to be more careful in protecting the football. He's thrown too many interceptions at this early point of the season.
Yeah.
But he's a second-year guy who is getting better. He's much in the line of Lamar Jackson, but just a better thrower.
Yeah, so that's Big C's thoughts on some top NFL running backs, and will they be able to run their team into the playoffs, or will they only be able to pad their stats? It's all fair in love and war. I want to make sure that people get out and vote, but if you don't register, then you can't vote. They're going to ask you for your information, and they're going to look and see if you're on that card. And if you're not on that card, then you're not going to be able to vote. You got to text the word VOTE to 26797. You got to get registered. If you're afraid, just tell them Big C sent you. The NFL told you. All the sports leagues are doing it. They got to get out and do it, Big C. I know it's so important. And even with the talk of the debate tonight, I just recorded it on the DVR, so I don't even know what happened. We're doing our show. But I hope that no matter what people see tonight, I hope that people can realize that President Obama had so much class in the White House. He was opposed by our racist and bigoted Senate, them good old boys that you talk about, those old white men like Mitch McConnell. It's amazing how many Republicans are losing on the down ballot from Lindsey Graham. Mitch McConnell's going to be kicked out. They were willing to destroy the whole Republican Party just so they could kowtow to Donald Trump. And now a lot of good old boys are turning their back on POTUS because they see the writing on the wall. And I hope that when people go out and vote, they keep in mind that your vote does matter, even though down south, you said again, 8 hours standing in line to vote. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is what, systemic racism is. This is what obstructing the vote is, Charlton. This is the denying what you call a civil liberty right in America. When you're forcing people to wait in line for hours. You think about this. In minority voting districts, Charlton, the average wait time in line is 1 hour and 56 minutes.
Wow.
And we've seen lines up to 11 hours.
Wow.
In a white polling district, Charlton, the average wait time is 6 to 8 minutes. So you're telling me that this is not voter obstruction by white people?
Yeah, we know it's voter obstruction. Republicans who are not voting for Trump in 2020, Mitt Romney, he's been quiet, but he's not voting for him. There's Charlie Baker. There's Governor Phil Scott, Larry Hogan, John Bolton, former National Security Advisor. You can't get the former National Security Advisor to vote for you. You know you're a crooked person, Big C. General Colin Powell, former Secretary of State. Carly Fiorina, 2016 presidential candidate. Michael Steele, former Republican National Committee chairman. Them white boys told him, "Hey, you ain't white." They got rid of him in a hard way, Big C. Miles Taylor, former Department of House Secretary, Chief of Staff. And then you have a couple more good old boys. John Kasich, former Ohio governor. You have Rick Snyder, former Michigan governor. Tom Ridge, former Pennsylvania governor. Mark Riccati, former Montana governor. And Jeff Flake, former Arizona senator. I hope that people will go out and vote. And I'm saying vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We got to bring decency back to the White House. I look forward to everybody trying to win baseball as they get off the pause by tomorrow for the next game. And Big C, everybody just realize we take a lot for granted. Shame on Troy Aikman. Shame on Chris Buck. Shame on all the networks that said that Colin Kaepernick was anti-military. We have two prodigal white guys that have been made millions of dollars by broadcasting black athletes, and they're making fun of our military, saying the flyover is a waste of time. Again, Big C, your thoughts?
White skin privilege, Charlton.
White skin. Well, you got to vote, Big C. Make sure you vote. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, we got Game 3 of the World Series tomorrow on the road. Who will have the road field advantage when it comes down to this one-to-one series? And I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, our doctors, our first responders. They're always on the road every day, Charlton, saving lives.
They're always saving lives, and we really do appreciate it. And we really do appreciate our militaries. I love the flyovers, and I'm a black man saying that. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. There's so many apps you can follow us, and I really do appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. As we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, there's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.